Well, hello there. My name is Jeff Johnson, and I'm making hopefully a simple and not too overly long video for several reasons. I'd like to introduce myself to my brothers and sisters down at Riverland College. I joined Team Riverland this summer, and I just want to say hello and offer you a toast from the crappiest boat in the entire state of Minnesota. I'd also like to communicate to you from the heart my sketchy history as an online teacher, which I'm really not. I made an effort at it about a decade ago, and I'm back at it again. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what help can we get philosophically, tech-wise, from an adjunct, right, who appears to be an emerging alcoholic? You've got Theo, you've got Sean, you've got Sherry Veeder down there, and friends I'm making left and right. And but I just, give me a chance, see what I can come up with here. Give you my life story in just a second. I'm an Anoka boy. I went to Anoka Senior High, grew up on the Mississippi River there, went to St. John's University, fell in love with that place, stole my best friend's girlfriend, married her, been living here now for a long time. A couple of boys, 26-year-old and a 23-year-old. They're both no good teachers like me. And I spent my 30s and 40s teaching at St. John's Preparatory School. I keep looking here in the glint to see if I'm actually filming something. Looks like I am. I was happy for 19 years at St. John's Prep School, or what passes for happy. And then I had a little career swerve. And I had the poor taste at the age of 49 to lead a revolution against a priest and a principal who were trying to change the direction of the school from AP programs to the International Baccalaureate program. And they did it, and the school's been shrinking ever since. It was really rough to get grudge fired. And a whole generation of alums tried to save me. The school is still collapsing in slow motion. And I wrecked a school. That's my street cred. Have you ever been hired by a pedophile priest only to be fired 19 years later by a different pedophile priest? I have. And it was it. I was out. And worse, I had a lapsed teaching license and an unfinished master's degree from the 80s. So a bunch of professor friends of mine at St. Ben's and St. John's and St. Cloud State, whose kids I'd served, they sat me down and said, wrecking a high school is not really a great career move. Let's go to the provost, get some of those credits dusted off so you can just go 1 year and get the MA. And I did. I did. I was a 49-year-old teaching assistant making 13 grand a year, hanging out with 20-somethings that were all tattooed and pierced, and they invited me to their parties even. I was like their troubled uncle. I never went. I always came home to the farm here, to my wife and my boys. And I got the degree. Following year, I was so scared I took 3 teaching jobs. Took a couple classes at St. Cloud State, a 1/3 contract at the College of St. Benedict. And I'd written Kelly McCullough some crap email. Hey, do you need any help up there? And he calls me while I was roofing the front of the house of a friend of mine. I said, you know what, I'm reconsidering. I think Brainerd's too far. He said, I want to talk to you anyway. I found your house on Google Maps. We might be able to work it out so you don't have to come up every day. So I did, and I went to that interview, and it was a pretty important day for me. I didn't realize it until I arrived there. I want to work here. And I also didn't have any idea that I was about to begin a whole new chapter of my life at the greatest teaching job of my life, which is Central Lakes College, where I teach English and direct a kind of a big way reading series called Verse Like Water that I funded with grants from the State Arts Board and Regional Arts Board stuff. Grants, money. I've gotten 300 grand in the last few years, last 8 years. It's like taking candy from a baby, I'm telling you. And I've taken candy from a baby, so I know how easy it is. So let's get to the online stuff, because I got a couple stories to tell you that are okay, I think, pretty good ones. When Kelly interviewed me that day, that first day on campus, with Matt Fort in the cube there, he asked me, do you have any interest in online teaching? Would you like to teach on, you wouldn't have to commute. You could just stay home, do it through the computer. That was a completely strange idea to me, and you don't lie in a job interview, so I said, I don't think my heart would be in that, Kelly. I don't think I can do that. Well, gateway drug time. He says, hey, how about a 75-25 hybrid class? You'll reduce seat time, you'll reduce your driving time. We'll have you come up Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then all you got to do once a week is to provide 45, 50 minutes of work for them online. I said, that right there, if you train me in D2L, I'll do that. And I did. And the following spring rather, I had 4 classes in. I was an adjunct for a little while, but I made it. And that spring, I go to my mailbox and I took out my load report. And I looked on it and I could see Comp 1, regular Comp 1, and I could see classical mythology, which he wanted me to give a whirl to. I've been teaching it ever since. It's one of my favorite things on earth. And I saw online Comp 1, and I'm like, what's going on here? So I went down to his office and I said, Kelly McCullough, what is the matter with you? I told you when you interviewed me last August that I don't want to teach online. He put his hands up and he said, listen, I want you to trust me here. We're taking you aboard, and I want to make sure you come aboard. And I want you to at least try it for 1 year. And the point of it is that you'll know a little bit about online teaching. He then said, I didn't realize the ominous tone in his voice, but he said, someday you might have to teach online. I said, okay. I loved him well. I still do. And I owe him so many debts. So I did it in kind of a weird way. You know what summers are like, right? I've been teaching 35 years. That's a lot of summers off in a row. And sometimes I think about teaching, but sometimes I don't, as much as I love it. In August of that year, I realized I got to teach an online class. And I looked up, and one day, and a colleague of mine, Leanne Flynn's, her entire D2L thing had come into my shell, whatever you call it. And like, this is not my class, this is Leanne's class. And so I called her up or texted her and I said, you know what, your entire Comp 1 class is in my deal. Can I look at it? Can I just take a peek? She said, of course you can, absolutely. She was flattered that I'd even want to look at it. She said, let's leave it there for 3 days so you can study it. I didn't need 3 days to study it. I took one look at that and freaked. It was an entire class of 14 weeks, just mapped out. It proclaimed organization and detail that were unbelievable. I'm not in possession of either of those traits. And I started getting a little bit anxious. And I said to myself, I need help. So I went to my 16-year-old son, that's how old he was then, Jeffy. And he was just getting going on techie stuff back then. I said, well, I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to teach an online class. He said, let's just make you a YouTube channel. I said, that right there, that's an idea. So for the next 9 months, Jeffy, we started on, not this boat, but my previous pontoon, which was much bigger. And we started in on it. At first we had an iPhone 4, a jiggly iPhone 4. Those vids were terrible. Partway through that year, we got a better camera at St. John's because I had borrowing privileges there, still do. And there was a tick up in quality. And about halfway through that, probably it was around Christmas time, I said, let me make you an offer you can't refuse. You pick out a camera, pick out a shotgun mic, get yourself a tripod, and I promise you this, if you help me build this channel that I'm going to use forever, you can walk with the camera when you take up your life. And I accidentally created a professional videographer. He's a genius at it. And in addition to being an English teacher at Andover High School, he's making serious bank with the side gig of video, editing, design, sound. He's just completely natural at that. I'm almost done with this part of the story. If you stick with me. At the end of that school year, I made a presentation on what my experience was like teaching with YouTube in D2L, in the D2L environment. And it went over okay. Then later that summer, I made 2 presentations at the largest tech conference that we have in the state of Minnesota that's for educators and who want to understand technology and the relationship between those two very different things. Now, I got to tell you, I really nailed the second one, and I'm boasting now. But I really did, and usually if you go to a conference, some of you have to know this. You're lucky if like 10 people come, 15 people come. I've done it many times, but for some reason, I don't know if word got out or whatever, but there were like 60, 70 people in that classroom. All MinSCU types, which is what most of you know what we used to call MinState. There were teachers in there were deans, there were VPs, and it was like, whoa, a little pressure. And I told them the story, a longer version of what I told you, and I had to talk about, the basics of it, what the experience was like, the tech part of it, the captioning to be ADA compliant, etc. But instead of petering out at the end, which is what I usually do when I'm at a conference or in like the classes I taught today, this morning, live Zoom, I kind of went for the crescendo finish. And I said, okay, I will now introduce the following idea. And I'm going to commit blasphemy at a tech conference. I pointed to the screen, I pointed to the computer, and I said, I'm through with this. I'm done. I tried it, I opened my heart to it, I gave it a fair try, and I'm going back to the classroom for good. I am never teaching online again. And I just went on kind of a rant. I think I remember declaring Bill Gates to be an idiot, and I made fun of his operating system because I'm all about the Mac environment. And I said something that I still truly believe in. I said, I believe in an education of the human heart. I believe in the heart. I don't teach critical thinking, I teach critical feeling. And I said, Bill Gates is wrong when he says that the future of education is in computers, that the future of education is online. I'm done, but knock yourself out. Good luck with it. And I remember, I think I darn near skipped to my truck. I was so happy. I'd made a good presentation. Summer was ahead of me. And I was kind of like, well, I tried it. And I drove home thinking, I am never teaching online again, ever. And then the pandemic came along. So, obviously, Kelly's dark prophecy has come to pass. And a decade later, I realized how correct he was when he said you might have to teach online someday. And I've got some things to say about that. And I probably can already tell that the way I live in the world is teaching, and the way I teach in the world is through storytelling. And I got a couple more stories for you, but I also would very like to make a very gentle argument. And I'm meeting so many fantastic people down there. I can't believe it, but let's dial the clock back a little bit. We all experienced together this spring the beginning of the pandemic, and I will spare you the Catholic apocalyptic thinking that I usually inflict on my students. But I'm thinking back just personally to what the beginning of it was like for me. I saw it coming in January. I was already buying bizarre amounts of food and firewood for the 2 chest freezers I got in my shed in the basement. I got the last thing I did in a physical way with my students was about 5 minutes before it closed. I got them to the Guthrie Theater to see Shakespeare. I brought my PSEO club and my honors lit class. We do it every single spring. And it was just days before it closed, and it just felt heavy. And those students on that bus are like, Johnson, are we going to see you after break? And I said, I love you, and because I love you, I have to tell you, no, we're going to be online. So, forwarded a little bit, we had an extra week at spring break, at least at CLC, and then we reconvened, and we were online for obviously for the rest of the year because of lockdown. So the way I did it, even though I knew jack about Zoom, I think I was the only one in my department to really go for it and to teach live Zoom classes. Like every time that my class was supposed to happen, I did it. I did it out on my glass porch, and I had this sheet behind me, and I found a way to MacGyver it, MacGyver my way to the end. MacGyver went to my high school, by the way, the actor who played him. And one of the first things I noticed was just how absolutely exhausting Zoom live classes is. I'd get done with my 2 Comp 2s and my honors lit and my intro to the humanities class, and I'd fall on the couch and sleep. And we all had like different things happen to us. We found a little melanoma between my foot, cancer patient in the pandemic. That's gone, don't worry, I'm good. I brought my 91-year-old mom here for 23 days when I got scared, and she wanted to go home because she wasn't sleeping. So the stress and stress within the stress is just prismatic. And we were all scared back then. We're still scared. So, and I had a beautiful place to quarantine. I've got 20 acres here that's just gorgeous on that little lake I kind of showed you. But then I had an opportunity to teach another class. Kelly wanted me to teach a class this summer down there. And I tried it. I tried a live Zoom class. It was only 12 students, college prep English 2, 6 weeks. And it gave me a second chance to do it with this little laptop. And kind of like earlier, 10 years ago, when I really didn't do that much thinking about how I was going to get through the year, I kind of pulled that stunt this year, and really only in August going, okay, what's the method? And my department, by the way, led the way at Central Lakes College. The 10 of us just decided in late May, we're not going back. We're teaching from home. We even got a little ahead of our dean on that. And at the end of the summer, or very early September, I observed a long email from our VP of Finance, like super long, and I'm on hugging terms with her, and I read the whole thing to the end. And when I got to the end, I saw a reference to CARES Act funding. And again, I'm pretty good at getting external funds, or at least spending external funds. In fact, I set fire to every budget I go near. And I smelled money. And I wrote her that night, Kari, I could use a bunch of stuff. She says, well, give me the list. What do you think you need? And being honest, there's no way I would have known what to get. So I went to my son, 11 years in the future, and I said, Jeffy, I think I'm going to be able to get some equipment. Pick out stuff for me. I want a camera. I want a big camera. I want a GoPro Hero 8. I want studio monitors, not crap computer speakers. I want some kind of wireless lavalier microphone. And that actually happened. So, except they pushed back on the big camera. So again, they got me the lavalier wireless mics. That's what I'm talking to you with right now. Actually, I bought the monitors. I got to be honest about that. One failed. I got a tripod for this camera. I think you can see it in that picture I'm trying to drop into this. I got a 4K monitor so I can look up instead of down. That's the problem with Zoom. We're always looking down. We've got to look up. And 4x6 whiteboard. I got a ton of stuff. And here's the thing. I simply resolved to just say, I'm not having it with this crap sensor and camera on my MacBook Pro. I know Theo was sending out Zoom kits, and I'm not putting that down, but it just wasn't good enough for me. And I'm simply telling you that I got way more than my share of CARES Act funding because I was out ahead of everyone else. And then Kelly found me somehow some money to get me this Canon EOS R mirrorless camera, which is the dedicated camera that I use on my boat, and it's the one I'm speaking into right now. So what am I trying to do with this equipment? Well, the learning curve is really steep. But for one thing, I'm teaching live Zoom looking like this. And people freak. When I went to a live Zoom meeting with Sue Jens, who's the director of the Minnesota State Arts Board yesterday, and Vicki Chapoulis, who's the director of Five Wings Arts Council up in Staples, and we were talking money and grants and arts, and they just couldn't believe it. When I dropped into an honors meeting this week, we got the biggest honors program at CLC. No one could believe how clear I looked, and they all look like everybody looks on Zoom because we're just using these things. So I guess here's the main thing. Here come the argument parts. I recently heard a teacher on Minnesota Public Radio proclaim that this is going to be the good enough school year. That's a fatal stance. I'm not at all shaking my fist at one of my brothers and sisters in education. That teacher is scared. Tens of thousands of us are stressed and scared and teaching in the pandemic. Who wants to get sick? Over at St. John's and St. Ben's, teachers all got a choice. You can teach online or not. At my old high school, St. John's Prep School, they got a brutal choice. You can teach online, you can teach live, you can take a year of paid leave, or you can quit. And former colleagues are over there right now, nervous. And that's why that teacher said that. This is going to be the good enough school year. That can't be our stance. That cannot be our stilt. We can't just be adequate at this. We have to be, you all know this, but I'm just trying to make the argument, maybe for myself. We have to be great. We have to be great at this. Our students have never needed us more than this. I've been around the block a few times, and this ain't my first rodeo, as we say. I'm mixing my metaphors again. That's what English majors do. We have to absolutely be great, and looking good and sounding good is step one, I think. And that's why I got all this stuff. And you know what? It's working. So how am I using it? I'm using it in two different ways. Zoom is janky. There's a lag in Zoom. It's not perfect, but I do teach live Zoom classes with this gear. And it's working. My students are so happy, especially my classical mythology class, which has quickly become like a family because, 10 students or so already took classes from me before. It makes things easy. So I'm teaching live classes with this gear. And my class for Riverland is asynchronous. That's what Chris Hamilton wanted me to do. So I thought, I got to make YouTube videos again. Could I trot out the old videos? Of course. But I wanted to start all over and make brand new videos. And it's time consuming. You got to make the vid. You can't just sit here the whole time. You need different scenes. I'm trying to get my editing on. You'll see that with the video that I'm appending, just as an example. Not to show off, just to inspire you. I'm using Final Cut Pro, which I stole off the internet, fair and square for educational purposes, and I'm bit by bit, I'm getting better. And my son tells me the tables are turned. Now I'm the little baby learning, and he's the parent leading me by the hand, and he is absolutely determined to turn me into a videographer by the end of this school year. I told myself I would only call him once a day, and I'm calling him more than that. I'm like FaceTiming him, and what button do I hit here to make this text box? Suddenly, EOS and shutter speed matters to me. I never cared about it before, and didn't even have a camera. And the video quality is improving. It's getting better and better. I'm getting better at Zoom. I'm getting better at making YouTube videos. And I guess I'm going to end with 3 arguments, and then I want to tell you how excited I am to be on Team Riverland. Argument number 1, take a shot at teaching live Zoom, even though it's stressful. And I've seen most of my students are doing fantastic with it, but a couple aren't, and that's why I had to make a video called The 10 Zoom Mandments. And that's what I'm appending here. Think about teaching live Zoom. It's way better than nothing. My students are great. Consider YouTube. Consider YouTube. You don't need to be good. You don't need this, like if you can't get the gear somehow, you can do it with your iPhone. I made some pretty good videos with my iPhone. The last one I made before I finally fired this camera, I was on my boat. I had the iPhone on my chair on a crap board, and I had like my fish basket holding the board up, and then I wanted the camera tilted a little bit, so I went to the garden and got a jalapeno. And I thought, look, I'm just jerry-rigging this situation. Think about using YouTube. Kids love them. Students love them. And boy, do I got some nice students down at Riverland. I was reading a woman last night. She's in her early 30s. She's got 4 children. The old story, right? Back to school after many years. She told me in a journal entry how excited she was that my videos are about a half an hour long. Apparently, she's having trouble exercising and keeping her weight down. And half an hour is the dream exercise duration for her. So what she does is she takes the laptop and she sets it on her whatever she's got, a treadmill maybe, and she walks for half an hour and watches class. My heart was just warmed by that. Think about teaching live Zoom. Think about using YouTube. It's easy. It's a lot easier for me to talk than type. And the final argument, as I bid you farewell, I hope I get down there and see some of you in person. Let me tell you a little something about Kelly McCullough. I've known him a lot longer than any of you. And fun fact about Kelly, in his office, there's always a drawer that's got secret money in it, man. Unmarked bills. Run, don't walk to Kelly's office and tell him you want an upgrade. Find the money. Knock off a convenience store. Write a grant. I know you did something different down there with CARES Act, and that's fine. But at Central Lakes College, it all went to teachers. And we all got stuff, and I got the most. So go live Zoom, think of YouTube, go shake down Kelly for funding. Thank you for listening to this and watching it, if you did watch it. Please like and share, because I'm trying to go viral at 60. Could happen. Well, probably not. And I just want to tell you how glad I am to be having a little extra work. I love teaching so much, I skip sabbatical. It's just the greatest thing in the world, the teaching life. And I'm really excited to have some overload credits down there and be learning about the culture of another college. That's doing me some good too. And I'm also making some friends. Betsy and Sherry Veeder have been holding my hand and helping me. I may not need much of their help anymore. And John Olseth, your English teacher, one of them, is my new best friend, man. John Olseth and I are teaming up. We're both poetry enthusiasts. We're almost the same person. And we are going to bring you a poetry event. We're going to bring a poetry event to Riverland that's going to knock your socks off. In early November, we are going to host the current U.S. Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo. She will be the 27th poet I've hosted for my Verse Like Water series. John and I are going to stand shoulder to shoulder, and we're going to do it together. I'm going to cover her fee because I got more money than ever. Got 20 grand in my own office in unmarked bills, unspent grants, canceled events from last year. And not only are we going to bring Joy Harjo to Riverland and to CLC, my school, main school, John is going to put it in the hands of an awful lot of Anishinaabe kids, brown-skinned kids that are indigenous. 1,250 copies of Joy Harjo's most recent book. And we're really excited about this project together. We've already promised to be friends forever and make it an annual thing, and maybe even more episodic than that. And I've only got one disappointment so far working for Riverland. I'm pretty hurt that Kelly hasn't sent me any apparel yet, like a hoodie or a hat. But that's America. May God bless you all. I hope it's okay that I said that. Good luck teaching remotely this year. The gear matters. The gear matters. My wife's calling me. This must be a sign for me to say goodbye. I love you guys.